Hi everyone, welcome back to Extreme Trends. Over the course of modern history, the world has been struck with fierce natural disasters and epidemics that have harmed the planet beyond repair. These disasters range from awful diseases that have wiped out millions of people in one fell swoop, to devastating earthquakes and tsunamis that countries have never recovered from. All of these terrible occurrences you're about to see left a mark on modern history that won't easily be forgotten. Let's take a look at 10 of the deadliest natural disasters ever recorded. Number 10. The Chilean Tsunami. We all know that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and Mother Nature is the worst for it. Back in the swingin' 60s, it wasn't all perfectly coiffed hair and the Beatles. On May 22nd, at roughly 7 p.m., an earthquake shook the coast of south-central Chile. Following the earthquake, a tsunami formed with a surface wave magnitude of 8.6. Waves as high as 10 meters were reported to ravage the coast in Chile, Hawaii, Japan, the Philippines, New Zealand, Australia, and the Aleutian Islands. While the tsunami began fairly quickly after the quake, roughly 15 minutes, locals living on the coast were so startled and unprepared for the event that they took to small boats to try and keep safe. Not the best thing to do when the waves are taller than most houses. Around 6,000 people were reported missing or having died in the natural disaster, with an estimated cost of damages ranging from $400 to $800 million. In today's money, that's a whopping $6.4 billion. Nature truly is our best friend and our worst enemy. Number 9. The Tohoku Earthquake. On March 11, 2011, Japan was rocked with an earthquake measuring 9.0 to 9.01 devastated parts of the country. The scale of the earthquake caused the tsunami, which hit the East Coast with incredible force. It was the largest quake to hit Japan in living history, and the fourth most powerful to hit the world ever. As you might expect, the damage and terror it caused was on an incredible scale, claiming the lives of 15,894 people, injuring 6,152, and leaving 2,562 missing and unaccounted for. As well as the tragic loss of human life, the coastline was changed forever. The amount of damage caused amounted to around 127,000 buildings totaled completely, and a further 272,000 in a state of collapse. If all of this wasn't bad enough, the quake brought 3 reactors of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into partial meltdown, creating an almost catastrophic nuclear disaster. The meltdown was the worst disaster of its kind since Chernobyl, and sent radioactive material up into the air around the plant. Some nuclear waste was even seen seeping through the front gates. The government ordered the evacuation of any residents within a 30-kilometer radius. It just went from bad to worse in this case, didn't it? Number 8. The 2011 Japan Tsunami. Following on from the Tohoku earthquake, a savage tsunami hit the shores of Japan. It wasn't just Japan that was affected either. The effects were felt as far away as Norway and Antarctica, with coastal towns completely destroyed by Mother Nature. The estimated cost came in at around 6.9 trillion yen. That's a staggering $199 billion, making it the most expensive natural disaster in world history. Even though Japan has systems in place to protect it from tsunamis, the waves were so tall and powerful, they overtopped and destroyed tsunami seawalls at several different locations along the coast. If that weren't enough, the sheer amount of buildings destroyed released thousands of tons of ozone-destroying chemicals and greenhouse gases into the air. 6 years on, and Japan is still reeling from the disaster. In February 2017, it was reported that 150,000 evacuees had lost their homes, and 50,000 had been living in temporary accommodation ever since. Number 7. Hurricane Katrina. The aftermath of the deadly and destructive Category 5 tropical cyclone is still felt today. Originally forming in the Bahamas on August 23, 2005, Katrina made her way to Florida, where she gathered force, hitting the Gulf Coast from central Florida to Texas and impacting a range of roughly 90,000 square miles. The hurricane was a force to be reckoned with, and the third most intense landfalling tropical cyclone in United States record. At the very least, Katrina claimed the lives of 1,836 people, primarily in Louisiana and Mississippi. The majority of victims were senior citizens who were unable to escape their properties when they needed to, or unwilling to leave their homes. New Orleans was reported to have been 80% underwater thanks to the sheer amount of rain, in some places reaching up to 20 feet deep. The disasters left damages behind amounting to an incredible $108 billion. As well as the havoc from the strong winds, the flying debris was so dangerous that alone claimed human casualties. 12 years on, and the areas affected still haven't fully recovered, despite monetary donations from over 70 countries, including Kuwait, who pledged a very generous $500 million. Number 6. The Black Death. Perhaps one of the most, if not the most, famous epidemic in history, the Black Death was the scourge of Europe, lasting from 1348 to 1351 and killing a phenomenal 75 to 200 million people. While no one really knows what caused the disease, scientists have since theorized that the pathogen responsible was Yersinia pestis, which mutated into several forms of the horrifying outbreak, including the bubonic plague. Most likely spread from its origin in Central Asia by the fleas from the rats that would stow away on the merchant ships traveling to Europe, it was an illness straight from the devil himself. Victims would firstly notice the appearance of fluid-filled tumors in the groin, armpits, and neck. When they oozed, the pus led to the spread of the contagion. It's safe to say that it was something you would avoid at all costs. Number 5. The Indian Ocean Tsunami of 2004. Like all tsunamis, it started out as a huge earthquake measuring 9.15, which hit the Indian Ocean near the west coast of Sumatra on December 26, 2004. The earthquake was so powerful, scientists have said it would have had the same energy as 23,000 Hiroshima-type atomic bombs. The rupture between the tectonic plate was more than 600 miles long and displaced the seabed so severely that trillions of tons of rock shifted position, creating a terrible quake. The following tsunami was terrifying and deadly, killing between 200,000 and 310,000 people over the holiday season. As the devastation struck the shores of Indonesia, Sri Lanka, South India, and Thailand, many tourist hotspots were struck and completely destroyed, turning a Christmas getaway into the stuff of nightmares. While the earthquake happened several hours previously, no tsunami warnings were in place, so inhabitants had no idea of the horror they were about to witness. Since the event, there have been several films centering around it, including the 2012 movie The Impossible, starring Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts. The impact of the tsunami affected 14 countries and was one of the deadliest natural disasters ever recorded. Unfortunately, due to the positioning of the tectonic plates and the amount of pressure that continues to build between them as they push together, it's likely that a similar disaster will occur in the future. Although, perhaps not in our lifetime. Number 4. The East Africa Drought. It's no secret that water is a huge issue in third world countries. This was particularly evident in 2011, when the scorching heat brought on the worst drought in 60 years. At its peak, 12.4 million people were in desperate need of food and water, resulting in a serious crisis across Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. Not only did it pose a catastrophic threat to life, but threatened the livelihood of almost 10 million people, such as farmers who couldn't grow crops. The lack of rain meant that any crops that had been started failed, and livestock died as much as 60% in some areas. As a side effect of all this, cereal prices rose to record highs, while livestock prices and wages fell to a record low. Despite humanitarian aid, the drought had serious consequences and continued until the middle of 2012. Number 3. The Nevado del Ruiz volcano eruption. Known alternatively as La Mesa de Herveo, the volcano created the second largest disaster of its kind in the 20th century. On November 13, 1985, the town of Armero in Tolima suffered a horror that you would only see in movies. Scientists had noticed increased activity in the volcano since earlier on in the year, but it wasn't until that day that things really took a serious turn for the worse. At around 3 p.m. in the afternoon, the volcano began shooting hot lava more than 19 miles into the atmosphere. After making its way thousands of meters down the sides of the mountain, the lava and sulfur were directed into all of the 6 river valleys leading out from it. One of these led to the town of Armero, virtually erasing it off the map. While the town had a population of 28,700, only a quarter of these managed to survive. In total, the death toll reached 23,000. The scientific community came under fire with claims that they could have prevented the tragedy, but they argued that no one knew exactly when the eruption would occur. Even locals dubbed the volcano the Sleeping Lion. Number 2. The Afghanistan Blizzard. We've seen tsunamis and earthquakes galore with a side of drought and terrible disease. Now it's the turn of one of nature's harshest elements: snow. In 2008, the fierce blizzard struck the mountainous regions, with temperatures falling to below 30 degrees Celsius and 180 centimeters of snow. Almost 1,000 people perished in the area, despite aid organizations and foreign troops distributing clothes, blankets, food, and fuel wherever they could across the province and even reaching out to the remote mountain villages. Many civilians walked barefoot out in the freezing snow, leaving themselves open to all sorts of illnesses. Around 100 people lost limbs due to frostbite, as well as the loss of human life. A staggering 315,000 cattle perished too. Last but not least, number 1, the Spanish influenza. We've all heard people claiming they've got the flu when they've just got a common cold, but unfortunately, in 1918, a type of virus hit 500 million people all across the world. Not easily cured with a box of tissues and a steam bath, this strain of the virus wiped out 50 to 100 million people. That was around 5% of the world's population at the time. At the time, we were nowhere near as medically advanced as we are today, meaning treatment was limited, along with understanding of the infection itself. Back then, disease was more likely to fatally affect the very young and the elderly. But the Spanish influenza went the other way, mainly claiming the lives of healthy young adults. Making its way through Asia, Europe, and North America, the virus left no stone unturned in one of the deadliest outbreaks ever known. Can you imagine something like this happening today? Fortunately, you don't have to. That concludes our video for today. We hope you enjoyed watching. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and hit subscribe to keep up to date with us. Make sure you turn notifications on so that you never miss a thing. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye!